2 days of racing for Watkins Glen and two great races. Watkins Glen is one of my favorite racetracks on the NASCAR schedule, and it just showed why with a fantastic weekend of racing, and on top of that, it sold out for the 5th consecutive Cup race. For 5 straight Cup races, that racetrack has sold out, and I think the racing product has a lot to do with it. That is a great area to go and watch a race at, has a lot around it they could do, and overall it's just it's a cool racetrack. It provides great racing, and we saw it with the Xfinity race and the Cup race here this weekend. So to start off, the Xfinity race on Saturday was eventful, to say the least. Kyle Busch dominated the early stages of the race, however, had something in his suspension brake which made him spin out and put him behind the wall, and he actually had to retire from the race. So it took Kyle Busch out of the race, and it left drivers like AJ Allmendinger and Ryan Blaney and Justin Allgaier and Christopher Bell and whatnot to battle it out. At one point in the middle of the race, Ross Chastain and Justin Allgaier went side by side through the bus stop, which is not a very good spot to go side by side. It's so narrow, and it's basically just a bunch of turns that it's very hard to go through there side by side without rubbing and making contact. So Chastain got into Allgaier, spun around at the exit of the inner loop, and Allgaier sustained some damage after hitting the tire barriers. So obviously Allgaier was not happy about what happened there, and later in the race, once behind Chastain, didn't try and pass him entering the inner loop, stayed behind them, and going into the carousel, got in his back bumper, him up the racetrack, and then while he was going up the racetrack, him again, and sent him into the tire barriers. Now, while I think Allgaier did deserve to get some sort of payback on Chastain, obviously Chastain I don't think meant to do it. I think it was obviously a racing incident with them being side by side in the bus stop, and it wasn't really the smartest thing to do at the time. But I feel like Allgaier had a right to maybe spin him out, get him up the racetrack, whatever. Kind of what Chastain did to Allgaier, get him up out of the way, spin him out, and kind of make him lose positions. Instead, Allgaier basically destroyed the Ford car as he sent him into the tire barriers hard, and it actually ended Chastain's day. So it was a tough break for Ross Chastain, tough break for Justin Allgaier. That's something to look to as we go forward. What might happen between those two, if anything at all. But overall, I just feel like Allgaier maybe stepped the boundaries a little bit. He obviously had a right to get back at him. I think he just did a little bit too much. Then later in the race, Christopher Bell, man. Christopher freaking Bell. On a restart, got tagged by I think it was Justin Allgaier. He came down Justin Allgaier. It sent the 20 sideways in the S's. The place where Kyle Busch got spun. Well, I don't want to say got spun by Kyle Busch. The place where Kyle Busch spun in 2012 on the last lap from the lead. Christopher Bell was the same amount sideways, if not more sideways, and saved the race car. He somehow saved the race car, kept it going straight. He got second. He got second in the race. It was amazing driving by Christopher Bell. I've never seen a save like that. That is save of the year right there. Bell just did an amazing drive. What that allowed, though, was Austin Cindric on some weird strategy coming down pit road, getting tires on, which everyone disagreed with. Austin Cindric drove up through that madness, didn't have to battle them after the restart, then got all those positions at once, and then ran down AJ Allmendinger. He put the bumper to him in the carousel, sent Allmendinger wide. Allmendinger came back at him, basically followed him in his tire tracks down what I would call the second longest straightaway of Watkins Glen, and entering turn 6 gave him a bump at the racetrack. Cindric got off into the runoff. Allmendinger was back clear, but messed up turn 7, went wide, almost got into the wall. Cindric got back by, cleared him down the front, and Austin Cindric won his first ever race in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and what was a fabulous race, the best Xfinity race at Watkins Glen I've seen in a long time, and I would say was the best race of the weekend. The Cup race was good. I don't think it was as great as the Xfinity race by any means, but it was still pretty good. So it started out with Chase Elliott, William Byron getting the front row for the Cup race. At the green flag, Elliott rocketed off and had like a 3-second lead by a few laps in. The 9 was crazy fast here today, and that's why he got to victory lane. But early on, tempers were flaring early. William Byron was running in second. Kyle Busch was running in third. Kyle Busch made a move in turn number 1 to make the pass. Byron didn't give him much room, and Kyle, getting in the gas, made a little contact with Byron, getting in the gas on the curb. Those curbs really have no grip. But he got in the gas, spun the car around. He did complete 360, got back going straight. He actually went from third only back to 10th, so it wasn't too bad for Kyle Busch. Then, towards the end of the stage, Kyle Busch made his way through the field, got up inside the top 5. and ran down William Byron, entering the inner loop, entering the bus stop. Kyle Busch got into the back of William Byron, sent him through the grass in the inner loop. Now, the 2014 wasn't so happy about what happened. Chad Knaus was livid over the radio. And once the green checker was taken, Chad Knaus said to William Byron, his driver, "If I don't see you in the back of that effing 18 the next time you come around here." Basically saying, you better go tell the 18 he did wrong. What William Byron did was he ran up on the driver. Kyle Busch, looking in his mirror, probably saw that 24 coming and said, don't really want him to hit me so hard. So what did Kyle Busch do? He did what anyone would do in that situation when someone comes up to hit you. You brake check them. Why do you brake check them? So that they do more harm to their car than they do to your car. That's exactly what happened. Kyle Busch barely got any rear end damage. William Byron's whole front end was destroyed on the 24 car. He took a car that was running inside the top 5, inside the top 10, and ruined it. So for William Byron, his crew chief did tell him to do it a little bit. Chad Knaus was kind of like, you better go up in there and tell him. I just think that Williams should have either pulled up alongside him and told him, got behind him and not really run into him, just kind of bump him a little bit, show him that you're mad, or on the next restart, go down there and hit him, spin him out, do whatever you wanted to do. But, it was kind of bad what Byron did there. It ruined his run for sure, but luckily for him, he didn't lose too much over the cutoff due to the fact that many cutoff drivers had bad races. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But Chase Elliott ended up winning Stage 1, and Stage 2 went pretty much most of the same. He ended up dominating Stage 2. He won that one under the caution flag after Bubba Wallace got into the tire barriers. Now, Bubba got into the tire barriers. He had some help from Kyle Busch, allegedly. No camera angle really caught it, but from what Bubba said, and the running order would kind of make this accurate, it would definitely show that Busch was behind Bubba. At the time when Bubba Wallace wrecked, he was running 18th, Kyle Busch was running 19th. So all signs do point to maybe Kyle Busch did give him a little help going up the racetrack. Bubba hit the tires and brought out the caution flag to end stage number 2 early. And then stage 3, we had some pit strategy. So pit strategies all throughout because of the gigantic spoilers we have on the rear of the cars. The fuel mileage is worse because there's more drag with those spoilers, means you get less fuel economy and all that stuff. So fuel window was about 31 to 34 laps. There was this crazy strategy that some drivers are on where they pitted before the end of stage 1, before the pits closed. Then they stayed out all of stage number 2, and then they would have to pit in stage number 3. The problem is, though, they didn't have as much fuel as drivers like Chase Elliott, who came down pit road at the end of stage 1, or Martin Truex Jr., or Denny Hamlin, drivers like that. So the first of them to hit pit road was Kevin Harvick. He came in with, I think, about 33 laps to go, so he was right on the edge of the fuel window. Many others followed in between that. Jimmy Johnson was one that came down pit road under a yellow flag that happened towards the beginning, or was it? He came down pit road at some point when no one else came down pit road, like he was the only one, him and Daniel Suarez and all that. They came down pit road. Jimmy Johnson ended up taking no tires on the pit stop, got out and away. William Byron was on that same strategy because he had to come down pit road a lot to repair that damage and get that car as good as he could. By the way, other drivers that got damaged, Joe Logano and Ryan Blaney, two teammates leaning at each other in the inner loop. We saw drivers go off into the grass in the inner loop a ton. Ryan Blaney and Alex Bowman had grass on their grills. Ty Dillon went through the grass. So, I mean, it was a crazy race. But getting into Jimmy Johnson, he was running about 20th when pit cycle started. He came in with basically everyone else, which was smart. You don't want to stay out and risk a yellow coming out and then you being trapped with that strategy. So, Jimmy Johnson ended up coming up here taking tires only, or taking fuel only, getting out and away with a lot of the drivers that he came in behind. So he came out basically in the middle. He gained maybe 5, 6, 7 spots. He came out in front of Ryan Blaney. Now, Ryan Blaney, exiting the bus stop, got a nice run on Jimmy Johnson. According to Blaney, he got to his inside, and Johnson cut down across the nose, basically not knowing he was there. Maybe the Spire communication didn't happen fast enough. Maybe the Spire couldn't see that point of the racetrack. But Johnson cut down. Blaney said he tried to lift out of it. Johnson came down, turned himself off the nose of the 12, I'm assuming what Blaney says is correct. And it spun the 48 into the tire barriers. He had some debris. The debris that was dropped brought out the yellow flag. But that wasn't all that happened. Bubba Wallace was running around Kyle Busch at the time. They were on the front stretch. Bubba, still mad from Kyle Busch's actions towards him in the carousel earlier in the race, he ended up going and running Kyle Busch to the pit wall. Now, Kyle Busch wasn't too happy. He came up and door slammed the 43. 43 came and door slammed him. Then the 18 went back up and hit 18 came back up, hit the 43 really, really hard. So Bubba let Kyle go and turned him off the quarter panel, spun the 18 around under the yellow flag. So more drama there. Kyle Busch obviously not happy with Bubba Wallace, and Jimmy Johnson was furious with Ryan Blaney. He basically told Earl that to go tell Blaney Spire that he is going to effing kick his ass. So Jimmy was not happy at all. And it's maybe the angriest and most frustrated I've seen Jimmy Johnson towards a driver in quite some time. The reason he's this frustrated is because he is on the cutoff to make the chase. Like, he is tied on the cutoff right now. He has not won in over 80 races. It's been a miserable stretch of races for Jimmy Johnson. He just changed another crew chief. This is his third crew chief in under a year. So for Jimmy, it has been a rocky ride this past year, and he's looking for just something to go right, and he got spun while on a different strategy, and he wasn't too happy at Blaney for it. And this is also bad because while he was on that strategy, Ryan Newman had issues with about 40 laps to go, had a tire go down, had to come down pit road. They got a penalty for driving through too many pit boxes, and then he had to come down pit road and serve that penalty. Ryan Newman was a lap down back in like 36th place. Jimmy Johnson was up running about 20th. That was going to be a great points day because Johnson got stage points early on, and Ryan Newman got none, and now he's back in 35th. And then Jimmy got put back with Newman, and Clint Boyer, while this was going on, he also had issues, so he was back there as well. So all three drivers that were on the cutoff had issues, which allowed William Byron, even though he got a miserable finish, I think it was like 22nd, 21st, he ended up keeping basically what his gap was. I think he only lost a few points to that cutoff. So it wasn't too bad for William Byron, but it still was a pretty interesting move, to say the least, to damage his own car under the yellow flag. But on the restart, Kyle Busch and company tried to come through the field. Kyle Busch ended up going from 30 whatever to 11th. Jimmy Johnson went from 30 whatever to, I think he got 19th. Boyer got 20th, and Ryan Newman got 25th. So that put Boyer still 12 points ahead of the cutoff. Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Newman tied at 16th and 17th. Jimmy gets the nod, though, over Newman, so Jimmy is currently in the chase. However, we still have Michigan, Bristol, Darlington, and Indy left, so there's still a lot that can go wrong for drivers, and we'll just have to see how it goes entering the run to the playoffs. But the battle for the lead in the last 20 laps was interesting, to say the least. Martin Truex Jr. was behind Chase Elliott. On the restart, they beat and banged in turn one, entering the S's. In the S's, they were beating and banging. And it caused a tire rub possibly on the 9 car. He felt like he was having a tire go down. That ended up not being an issue at all. He wasn't too happy with Truex hitting him in turn one, but whatever. It was just racing, in my opinion. It was just good, hard racing at a road course. The big issue, though, is what Martin Truex Jr. said over the radio. He said, I can get within a few car lengths of him, then it's like I hit a wall of air. Maybe he's talking about the big, gigantic spoilers on the rear of the car. But something that I kind of thought about was, it was almost reminiscent of last year's, except not really. I liked last year's Watkins Glen race a lot better than this one. This one was still really good. But I just feel like last year's, the finish was, I don't want to say, because this finish was natural as well. Last year's, I don't know how to really say it, but like when Chase was out front last year, I feel like he and Truex maybe had equal cars. Maybe Truex was actually a little bit better. The difference was, I think Truex could get closer last year than he could this year. This year, the closest I ever saw him in those last, few laps was barely under 2/10, and that was during lap traffic. If there wasn't lap traffic, Truex couldn't get within 2/10 of Chase Elliott. Last year, he was all over the bumper of the 9, was kind of following through, trying to force him a mistake. Both were making mistakes. Chase overdrove the corner at one point, allowed Truex to get back in. This year, no one really made mistakes. The 19 was just kind of bad in dirty air, And people will come back and say, well, Kyle Busch went from like 33rd on the restart and passed up to 11th. Well, the issue is, right, set this scenario up. Chase Elliott is leading the race. Martin Truex Jr. is second. Now let's go back to, say, someone like Alex Bowman running in 14th and Kyle Busch is running 15th. Alex Bowman's 14th. He has 13 cars in front of him. Chase Elliott's leading. He has no cars in front of him. When this is why the whole thing of you want to be the leader in track position is key. Because if you're the race leader, you have clean air. You don't have dirty air until lap traffic comes around. When you're back in 13th, you have dirty air just as much as the guy in 14th does. So it's easier to pass someone running 13th because the guy that you're passing is also getting dirty air in their car. Chase Elliott was getting not a single ounce of dirty air unless they caught drivers like Ty Dillon or Daniel Hemrick or Austin Dillon or other drivers like that. So it wasn't really like Chase had to fight the dirty air. That's why Kyle Busch kind of drove through the field. Not only was his car really good, he was back with drivers that didn't have as good of cars, but also he has amazing talent, and also the dirty air other drivers had, it allowed him to get by them. That's how it has been for years. Even last year there was dirty air, even with the small spoiler. Watkins Glen, it's not supposed to be easy to pass out a road course. The whole thing of road courses is you're supposed to see drivers try and set up passes, them sliding, and basically driver talent taking over. I felt like this year we saw in the Xfinity race what Watkins Glen could produce, but the Cup race was kind of hindered. I don't want to say it was all because of dirty air. I feel like Chase Elliott had a really good car, and he led 80 to 90 laps. So, of course, he had what I would call maybe the best car out there. If not, Truex was just a tick better, but it wasn't too much better. Chase had a dominating day. He led 80 of the 90 laps. That's the second most at Watkins Glen in one single race. Tony Stewart in 2005 led 83 of the 90 laps. So it's the second most dominating day in Watkins Glen history. But also, it was so dominant that Chase didn't really let anyone else get the lead. Going back through stats, I looked at something because one of my predictions once again at the beginning of the year was one race will break the record for the amount of lead changes for that track's history. Another will break the record for the least amount of lead changes. That's half of that has already been happened by Martinsville and Pocono. They've both had the least amount of lead changes. Watkins Glen has tied now for the least amount of lead changes in a race, 5. That's happened a few times, but that doesn't show what the race was like. The race was good. It wasn't as good as last year's. It wasn't as good as the Xfinity race, but it was a good race. And I think drivers did matter, but however, I feel like there was some dirty air towards the end. I think Truex was hindered by dirty air just a little bit, and that it is what it is. There's always going to be dirty air. Never going to get rid of dirty air. It's a thing of racing and cars and all that. But I just feel like the big spoilers really are not doing much at tracks like road courses and short tracks. So if we go to smaller spoilers, that'd be great. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. But congratulations to Chase Elliott. It's his 5th career win in the Monster Energy Cup Series, his 2nd straight Watkins Glen. He joins an elite group of, I think, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Marcos Ambrose. That's the only drivers to win back-to-back Watkins Glen races. So that's kind of cool. I think he's only the 5th driver to ever do that in Watkins Glen history. And those are some big names. Mark Martin, maybe the best driver to have never won a championship. Tony Stewart, an elite NASCAR driver. Jeff Gordon, an elite NASCAR driver. Marcos Ambrose, one of the best road racers you'll find in, just series, no matter what racing series it is. But overall, good weekend at Watkins Glen. Next week, we have trucks at Michigan on Saturday, then Xfinity at Mid-Ohio on Saturday, and then Cup from Michigan on Sunday. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But until then, I'll see you guys for the next video.